to echo Hayley's welcome. It is absolutely an enormous privilege for Dimitra and myself to be able to welcome you to this wonderful building. Built in 1821, I'm getting feedback now, built in 1821 by the Bristol Gas Company as the site of their first gasworks, and now we're absolutely delighted that it's going to be the home of the Bristol Digital Futures Institute. For those of you we've got a very mixed audience of people who've spent some time with us before and people who haven't. So for those of you who don't know us, I'm Susan Harford. I'm Professor of Sociology and I'm one of the co-directors. My colleague, Professor Dimitra Simeonidou, is Professor of High Performance Networks. And this interdisciplinary leadership marks the way that we think about digital futures and the way that we think about the future of the Institute. So we're just going to say a few words by way of introduction to the Institute for those of you who haven't heard it before. And then for those of you who have, we're going to give you an update on what we've been doing since you last visited us. And we won't be more than about 15 minutes, we promise. So, that's your agenda. So we start in BDFI from the premise that social life and technologies are interwoven with each other. It's really hard to separate the social from the technical, which is why we say that we live now in a socio-technical world. The aim then of BDFI is to think differently about how we innovate for that world and very actively about the kinds of futures that we are creating in the work that we do through digital innovation. Driving in particular towards some ambitious aims around inclusive, sustainable and prosperous societies. I don't think I need to go through all of this in any detail, but just to say we have existed since the end of 2019, which was, quite a tricky time to start a major institute, as it turned out, as Hayley's mentioned. We integrate expertise across the whole of the university because we're a university research institute. And we work with partners from across all different sectors, so from government, from voluntary and community sector, from industry, from SMEs to very large-scale global industrial partners. We have this facility because we had a very, very generous initial funding from Research England, which enabled us to develop this site with significant contributions also from philanthropy and from the University of Bristol. And we are located, as I guess you know, we were talking at lunchtime saying we're located on a building site in an industrial wasteland, which was mentioned by somebody in this audience who will remain nameless. In some senses that's true, but actually we are at the beginning of something that is tremendously exciting. We are the first university resident on the Temple Quarter Enterprise campus. There will be many more buildings, many more developments over the coming years, and we're really proud to be the anchor tenant, the first people in this space, and to be part of very ambitious redevelopment of this area, which will look fundamentally different in another 5, 10, 15 years' time. This is a long-term process that we're part of. I'm going to tell you a little bit about BDFI. I've already said we live now in a socio-technical world. Our world is shaped by how technologies and society interact with each other. And we know that this is changing our world and our lives, whether we as a business or a government or a nation or individuals or families or communities. We know that this socio-technical change is changing our lives both for better and sometimes for worse. There are real challenges and opportunities. We know this because we can study the past and the present. We can look back to how things have changed over the 20th century since the invention of the Turing machine, since the internet, since the web. We can look back and understand those things. Our question is, how do we think proactively, prospectively, and really actively about the future? How do we do that? Because the future hasn't happened yet, and we don't know exactly what it's going to be. And the aim of the Institute is to move beyond prediction. So, of course, we will continue to predict futures, but to move beyond prediction and a position which says that we're simply waiting for the future to happen, that somehow it's already out there and decided, and all we've got to do is adjust to it, to recognise that instead what we're doing with digital innovation and the way we think about digital innovation is shaping and making the futures that we will inhabit. And we want to be active players in thinking through how we do digital innovation differently, how we disrupt business as usual, in order to really aim towards making the kinds of digital futures that we would like to live in. How do we do that? We need new ways of thinking about digital innovation. We need to think across both social sciences and engineering, across different sectors, as we have mentioned, and create new technologies, not just with engineering methodologies, but with socio-technical methodologies. How do we take seriously that point about the interaction of the social and the technical in the way that we create technologies? That's our aim. This demands new ways of working. It demands that we work across disciplines. It demands that we work across all sectors. And perhaps, I should say in this space, it also really demands new facilities, new spaces to do that in. Those of you in universities, you will have grown up knowing that universities are very segmented, they're very divided. They are homes of very different forms of expertise, different kinds of spaces, different kinds of activities. From our perspective, that's not good enough. From our perspective, we have to create spaces where we will work together, both across disciplines and with partners who perhaps sometimes work together, but perhaps are not used always to working together across those sectoral divides. And that's what this building will do. I'm going to pass over to Dimitra, who's going to tell you a little bit more about the building.
Right, talking about the buildings. So, just going to comment something to what you said, Susan. Very fundamental of what we are doing in this institute is really driving creation of new technologies, driving digital transformation in a different way. So asking the questions for whom we are innovating and what's the purpose of innovation. So different purpose, embedding purpose into our innovation in a different way, and of course bring the disciplines together is going to drive this kind of thinking. And it's not the first time, actually. Technology has been transforming lives for a very long time. And this building is a great example how actually technologies back in the Victorian era transformed the life at Bristol. So where we are sitting, Susan mentioned, was the headquarters of the Bristol Gas Light Company, which simply, you get the coal here, or not exactly here, in the next set, and then you actually process the coal and produce gas. And then you pipe out the gas to gas lighting across the city, so you completely change the night economy in the city. So people actually, they go out and they live and trade after dark. And that is a very good example how technology actually transformed lives. And we would like to be part of the history of these sites, where actually, not for instance, classical technologies, but digital technologies, post-digital technologies, they are going to transform the lives and businesses and our city and our society, not only, of course, at Bristol, nationally, globally, and so on as we are going forward. So we are actually see ourselves as guardians of this site. Susan mentioned this is the first actually site in the Temple Court and Enterprise Campus. For us, it's not only a first site, it means something. And for Digital Futures, actually, it really indicates the way that we would like to instantiate and drive change through new technologies for the future. So this is our passion. Shall I use the clicker, or you're okay to use it?
I don't mind being your
I'll
clicker.
give it back to you. So Susan mentioned that our activity is well-funded and is funded through capital funding from Research England by 29 million, through collaborative projects with industrial partners. We are looking at an envelope overall of collaborative actually funding of about 100 million. And then, of course, much more, the value that we are generating going forward. We are having 28 partners, and some of you are here. And actually, our partnership really signifies our principles as well. So if you see the set of our partners are tech companies like BT and Thales and Airbus that you are here, and TM Forum that you are here today, but also we have quite a lot of civic organizations and community partners. And this really has been our ambition from the very beginning to work in partnership with these very wide and diverse types of partners, but also to be creating the space where our partners have the opportunity to work together without us in the middle many times. Probably you prefer without us in the middle anyway. But so that was, the partnership was a key thing about our institute. The second one was about spaces and facilities, and Susan mentioned this. So in order to collaborate effectively across diverse partnerships and diverse disciplines, you need the new kind of spaces and labs. And what you are going to see today, you are going to see two of our spaces where we would go in more detail, which is the Neutral Lab here, and then our reality emulator when we go downstairs. Right, we started end of 2019, and we've been exceptionally busy. Kudos to our colleagues and Jenny in particular, to actually bringing, refurbishing this building, but at the same time, recruiting new academics, engaging with our partners, probably less than we would have liked to, but also we have been actually quite active in bringing new projects, new collaborative research with our partners, so we can actually enact as soon as we are having our facilities. I just highlight a few projects here. For instance, our net zero sustainable campus testbed, we are making the whole building a net zero site. We are also making the whole building, our whole facility as a testbed to understand better how we can manage energy consumption and how we can achieve energy efficiency of digital infrastructures in the future. We are working in partnerships across cybersecurity, creative content, and networks to see what is the opportunity in the UK for actually leading some of the research around the metaverse. So that is another project that is starting with us across colleagues from digital creative security and networking. And we are very much involved in what we call a station innovation zone, very much being involved with Network Rail and the Temple Mead Station to actually create there a pilot of a digital station, and to drive actually the transformation and the refurbishment of our station here at Bristol, and of course lessons learned actually being moved to other places across the UK. There are many examples like this. I just wanted, and Susan is going to carry on, to actually give you an example of the diversity of the projects here, in particular around digital and digital infrastructures that we are already starting from this side. Shall I go?
Yes, please. So these are just another set of examples that we could mention. So on the top left-hand corner from your direction, the ESRC-funded Centre for Socio-Digital Futures, which dovetails really beautifully with BDFI. In the centre, this is a large investment from ESRC over the next 5 years. We share some of the same partners with BDFI, BT, but we're also bringing in some new partners, and our aim in this is to focus very, very directly on this question of futures in the making. So how are futures claimed by businesses, by governments, by communities? How are those claims acted on, and how are futures made? And that's a very direct set of research projects that we will bring to BDFI and interact, has some of the same researchers actually involved across BDFI and the centre. Explainable AI is a project that's been funded by LV, one of our partners, who I think are joining us a little bit later. This is really breaking out from some of the thinking about ethics and governance of AI. So can we explain what data are being used and what happens when different machine learning models are run over those data? But we're also trying to broaden out to a much broader way of thinking, which is how is that explained within an organisation and to the people that use those models, and how do those explanations shape the way that they use the models? Because whilst models may be developed in isolation in a data science lab, when they come into use by call handlers or in particular business teams, other factors come into play and shape the way that the models work. Similarly, we're working with Knoll West Media Centre, who are one of our community hubs, who are sitting towards the back of this slide, and Black Southwest Network, on what would explainable AI look like to communities. It's one thing explaining a machine learning model from one data scientist to another. What would that mean to make that explanation meaningful to communities that don't necessarily have much engagement with or knowledge of machine learning models? So those are just two examples. I won't go into the other two because we haven't got time, but if you're interested either in Connecting Through Culture as We Age, which is about digital innovation with older people, or the Centre for Gambling Harms, which is particularly about online gambling and research on online gambling and gambling harms, please do ask me.
I'm not sure how we are getting on with time,
I think
but
we're almost... We've got another 5 minutes, I reckon.
Okay, So
2 minutes, okay. Hayley says 2
you are
minutes.
going to get a lot of information around this place, and Susan is going to lead on that with our colleagues, so you can get an understanding how this place is going to be experienced and what is going to be delivered. We are building actually a fabulous data center, the back of the building, and actually an immersive capability for our digital twinning. And this is what we are doing now, and we on the way to deliver the whole capability by the end of 2023. So fully working systems, fully working spaces. And then the next side is, some of you know my colleague Dave Bull, that is leading actually around digital creative, sister projects to us, My World. BDFI is providing some of the facilities in the next space, the next set. So we are creating creative continuum spaces that they link very well with what we are doing here, actually, an instrumented auditorium. And then back in 2026, our new campus at the back of the Templeby station is going to be open. BDFI is establishing there some digital health facilities, cyber facility, and other additional capabilities. Again, they are going to be funded and supported by BDFI. So we are on a journey. Our journey started in 2019. We have a space now. We have a home, which is a big achievement. Probably you think it's little. For us, has been enormous, has been difficult. And we start actually delivering facilities, delivering collaborations, delivering on partnerships. So thank you all for being here today. It's a special time for us.